There's a legend around here. A killer buried, but not dead. A curse on Crystal Lake. A death curse. Jason Voorhees curse. They say he died as a boy, but he keeps coming back. Few have seen him and lived. Some have even tried to stop him. No one can. People forget. He's down there, waiting. Today on Outside the Box Reviews, we are taking a look at the NECA Jason Voorhees figure from Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. I am so hyped up for this figure. When I started seeing people getting it in hand at random Walmarts, I started scouring all of mine. It took a lot of scouring on my part, which was helped by the fact that there were a bunch of Spirit Halloweens to stop at along the way. But I came across this guy just this morning, and I just couldn't help but want to do a review of it. It looked great in package, and I was not disappointed taking this thing out of the box. I've complained in the past that NECA's quote-unquote ultimate figures a lot of times don't feel ultimate to me. They feel like they're missing either some hands or some certain accessories or whatever. This thing, I think, is the closest I've ever come to feeling like it 100% deserves that moniker. This figure holds all of his weapons well. He's nicely articulated. The detail on him is phenomenal. And if I'm remembering correctly, there is only one weapon he kills somebody with in the movie that we do not get in this pack. So yeah, let's not waste any more time. Let's take a look at what he comes with and the figure itself. Jason comes with 2 pairs of hands, which I think is sufficient for the most part here. They have that great skeletal look on them. They're kind of brown with that bone color mixed in. Really nicely done. Basically, he has 2 wide open hands, and then, they're not really wide open hands. They're kind of like clawing hands. I don't know what you want to call those. And then he has 2 that are more in the vein of like weapon holding hands. There is one weapon he comes with that I think maybe would have benefited for a second hand that had just a slightly wider grip on it, but they do seem like they're pliable enough that I'm not particularly worried about them getting deformed. They're definitely solid, but they have a little bit of rubberiness to them, which I think is just enough to actually make everything work the way I kind of hope it would. Like I said, we get a ton of weapons. This is phenomenal. So we get the little tent spike here. Has a nice bloody paint job on it with the silver sticking out at the bottom. Bent tip. I don't remember the tip being bent on the real thing, but it feels like it's supposed to be that way. So I'm going to just assume I'm thinking of it wrong. Yeah, the kind of like hook there in the back of it. I don't know what all the parts are. I assume it's a hook for like, you know, when it's in the ground or whatever is going to hold the tent post, right? I think that makes sense. But really cool looking. Holds this pretty well. It's nice and easy to get in its hand because you just slide it through and just stops when it stops because it tapers up. But very cool weapon there. We, of course, get his classic machete. No blood on this one. Just a nice silvery blade on there. A lot of dog hair on it. Get nice rivets there on the handle. Really nicely done blade there. Got a little bit of damage there at the very top. I don't know if that's from the movie or not. It may be a defect in mine, but it's not too bad. That paint job, that nice silver they got on there is actually really nice. You can see it reflects the light really nicely. And it's got a little bit of an edge on there as well. We got our butcher knife here. Very similar in the color on the blade. Maybe a little bit duller on that. It has that nice kind of mottled look to it, like a steel knife. Amazing that they got wood grain texture there on the handle with the rivets in there as well. Pretty damn clean for how tiny this knife is. We've got our axe. Once again, a nice kind of steel look for the head of it. Looks a bit worn. Looks like there may be just the slightest bit of red paint there at the end. I can't really tell. I don't know if that's intentional or not. I'm leaning towards not. We have kind of a mark there at the top of the handle. Once again, not sure if that's supposed to be there. It's not on the other side, so I don't know if it's supposed to be a rivet or something. Look at the top there. You can see the wood grain through the hole in the axe head. And then detail on the rest of this looks nice. Nice wood grain effect going on there as well. Got the little hand scythe, similar as well. Steel kind of look to it. It's got the bend in the handle there. We got the rivets in the handle looking like some nice old wood. Really dig how this one came out as well. Got the brush hook. More of the same great detail here. You can even see that it has like hex nuts on it, which is really cool. Like not just rivets, but actual like hex shaped nuts. A little bit of extra paint there here on mine. Not the worst thing ever, but some good wood grain here on the handle too. And I believe the original release, I cannot dig up my original one for the life of me right now, but I believe that one just came with the axe, which I might have. I think this is the old axe he came with, which you can see is huge compared to everything else, which is true of that figure in general. The machete and the hook, and none of them were super accurate, so this is really exciting. And then we get the tree trimmer. So we got the guard on there, all the bolts on that as well, looking great. The saw blade on it will actually spin. It's not super free spinning, but it will spin enough, which is really cool. You can see it's all dirty looking. Another hex nut, or a bolt, I guess, bolt head on there, looking really good. Got the handle up there at the front with the kind of grip part on the top of it. And then the engine. This is the one place I wish he had a slightly bigger hand to hold it with, because it is a little hard to get this into his hand. But overall, really nice. The detail on that engine in the back is phenomenal. You got the gas tank down there. Got some nice dirty equipment. And I drop it. You can see the like piston inside there. I don't really know too much about gas engines. I'm doing as best as I can with this, but it looks so nice. It looks great. I don't know for sure exactly how super accurate this is or not, but it looks right to me. Oh, even just a pull start back there. Hell yeah. Very cool. And you saw him with the tree trimmer at the beginning, but here he is with the axe. He holds that very nicely. Of course, you could like, manipulate him so he has it kind of in the backhand swing. I'd have to look at how he is actually posing that scene again, but when he goes and kind of does like the golf club move on the guy's head. There he is with the scythe, sickle, whatever you want to call it. Ready to do a little touch-up work on some of the partiers. There he is with the knife, the machete, the tent spike, and the brush hook. I know these aren't really great poses I'm putting him in, but I realize that sometimes it's nice to be able to see the figure holding each of its weapons to kind of prove that it can, because some of these things they've given us in the Ultimates line for Friday the 13th especially, the hands are made maybe to work better with some of the bigger weapons, and then some of the more delicate ones don't always get a hand that holds them particularly well. So I really wanted to show that off here. This brush hook's maybe the next most difficult one, mostly because it seems the easiest way to get him to hold it is to feed it through both of his hands one after the other, and then because of the articulation in his wrist and the way it's set up, it's maybe a little touchy to try to get his hands into the right pose. If he had ball joints in there, it would probably be a bit easier, but you definitely can manage to get him into a decent pose with it. As for the figure itself, I think the sculpt and paint on it is really nice. The mask is nothing crazy. It's kind of just a off-white mask with the leather straps on it, the single chevron. The mask really wasn't super crazy in the movie. I feel like it could maybe use a little more grime on it, if I remember right, but overall it works. Nothing fancy in the back of the mask, and it is removable though. It is all kind of like soft rubber straps on there with a somewhat harder mask itself. And then the best unmasked Jason of the franchise. Close enough, if nothing else. There's, maybe one or two that are good, almost to this level, but I think this is my favorite. I think they did a great job. He's got that nice kind of decayed zombie flesh, got his teeth sticking out on the side and in the front, the one living eye and the one dead eye, the lack of a nose, lack of ears. We got the scars there on the side of his head. Really nicely done. I think they knocked this one out of the park. And then we could pop that one off and put on this one, which I think I like even a little bit more. It's that screaming sculpt. I actually really like that they gave him like almost a cavity inside the mouth, like he's a real person. And then the teeth on the side, there's something kind of back in there, kind of simulating the makeup more than what he actually would be. The eye is nice and wide and angry looking now. All the like tendons and sinews kind of pulling on the side of his head. It looks phenomenal. Even from the side, oh, that looks really badass. And the one trick with this sculpt is that we have a little hole in the back of his head, and that corresponds to our second mask. We have the split apart mask, and this has the same kind of rubber strap that we got on the first one. Can we puzzle piece it back together? Yes, we can. Or at least mostly, yeah. Cool. So it actually does go together. We got the peg in the back there, and then you could have the mask actually kind of free floating on his head, splitting apart. So if you want him on the shelf with that infamous scene going on, you can pull that off, and I think that is phenomenal. Very, very nice. Going down the figure, we have that real metal chain around his neck. It is a little darker than the one we got with the part 6. Really we got it with the accessory set, but I think it fits this movie. It is a little tight around his neck, I find, and it kind of like, I'm worried it's going to scrape against the head sculpt and cause some paint rub issues. I think if maybe they added one more little link in that chain, it would have been a little nicer, but maybe it would have been too much. Maybe it would have been a little too flimsy around his neck and we wouldn't have looked the part. This figure has probably more rubber bits on it than any figure I could think of with NECA. Pretty much everywhere on this figure is a soft rubber over a hard sculpt, with the exception of like the elbow joints and like the feet and stuff. So you can see that nice gross zombie texture in there. The shirt's tattered to hell. All the great detail on there. It just flows so nicely on this. For a figure that could have been really hard to pull off in an articulated format. I mean, granted, people like Once Customs have been doing this for decades now at this point, it feels like. But, you know, for a mass-produced figure, it's definitely probably a daunting task. But they really knocked it out of the park. The spine looks great. Tatters across the bottom look really fantastic. Super happy with this. The only part of his pants that aren't torn up is around his crotch and his ass. And please ignore my fingers in this. They look terrible, but such is life right now. The legs carry on the similar detail, all torn up. You can see the burnt, charred flesh around his legs. You see his exposed kneecaps down there, coming down tatters. So cool looking. And then of course stopping at his boots, which are pretty nicely detailed themselves. You got the treads on the bottom and peg holes too. Really solid all the way around with this. For articulation, he has a ball joint at the base of his neck, so you can look a little bit up, a little bit down, actually a decent amount down. It's not too bad. Up is a little hindered, but it may also be the chain that's getting in my way. So you got to play with that a bit. You can, of course, tilt it side to side and rotate it side to side. Once again, be careful with the chain because I could just see a lot of paint rub happening. Also, if you're swapping the head, you do have to push it down with a fair bit of force to get it to pop back in there. When I was trying to shoot the intro to this, his head fell off many, many times. So be sure you're getting a nice solid connection. It will stay on if you do, but if you don't, it's a little flimsy. Arms will do full 360. They will come out to the side, maybe just shy of 90 degrees, but they come nice and far down to the side of the body, which I like. We have a double jointed elbow, those ones we've been getting a lot lately, so it has a phenomenal range of motion there. We can also swivel at that elbow as well. The hands will rotate full 360, and they have the hinge just in that up and down direction on the hand, which is, like I said, made it hard for him to hold that one accessory, the brush hook, but overall it's not too bad. I would have liked some ball joints on here, but these are fine. Same with all the hands, they're all the same joint. You can see there's a mid-torso joint going on under the shirt, which you can get pretty good access to really move around that upper torso. I think because of the sculpt, it's not the most articulated. He can lean forward a little bit. He can lean back a little bit. You can rotate side to side a decent amount with him, and you can lean maybe just a tad, but you know, it's there, it kind of works. And then I think we have another joint here at the waist. It's like a ball joint, so you can get a little more lean forward and back, not a ton, and then rotate side to side and lean side to side. Legs are kind of the standard ones we're used to with the diaper there. So they go out to the front, out to the back a little bit, out to the side a fair amount. We can rotate just a little bit up at the upper thigh. Single jointed knee, but it bends maybe just shy of 90 degrees. Not too bad. I think it works well enough for Jason, who's a zombie at this point. And then the feet can hinge forward and back. And then we have a nice ankle pivot in there as well. So we've got him just shy of 8 inches here. And he basically is just a hair taller than McCready. I don't know if that's an unintentional joke because McCready has big poofy hair and Jason doesn't. Honestly, don't know offhand how tall Kurt Russell is, but I feel like maybe Jason should be a little taller. But Kane Hodder also is not the tallest Jason by far, so maybe this works out just fine. And here's a look at all the Ultimate Jasons so far, plus the old Pamela figure. Honestly, I couldn't tell you if these 3 and 4 are specifically the Ultimate ones. I may have swapped out the ones that I had there. They may be the older versions, but I'm 99.9% sure it's the same body for those, so it really doesn't matter all that much. And it is cool to see our Jason lineup like this. We've gotten a lot of figures for this line. Obviously, there's a few critical pieces between our Part 7 and our Freddy vs. Jason we need to fill in, but we're closer than ever. And really, if you supplement in the Uber Jason from McFarlane and the Mezco Jason Goes to Hell, really we're just missing one. Although we definitely need upgrades on those old ones. Hopefully the stupid lawsuit will end soon enough and we can start getting Jason merch and stuff again and really get to the end of this line. It is also kind of cool looking from part 3, and if you ignore Roy there in the middle, but if you go from part 3 to 4 to 6 to 7, just to see the evolution of decay going on here. It's really nice. You don't have to have psychic powers or telekinesis or anything to know what I think about this figure. I was pretty upfront with it at the beginning of this review. I'm digging this thing a lot. I'm super excited about how this turned out. Definitely feels the most ultimate of all the ultimates NECA has given us, and I want to say that across the line, not just in Friday the 13th, in my opinion. He works with all his accessories pretty darn well. I love this mask gimmick, the fact that it can peg onto his head and stay in place and replicate this scene statically. It was so cool. I will say, if you're wanting to recreate that seed I did at the beginning of this with him underwater chained up like the end of part 6, he doesn't work particularly well for that because of all the holes in the back of his shirt. It was a little difficult to try to wrangle that, but I wasn't really expecting this figure to be built for that accessory. Overall, I'm just thrilled with this thing. I'm going to give it a very high recommend. It's a little bittersweet because we don't know when or if we'll get more Friday the 13th figures. Apparently comes with the built-in action feature of looking like he got hit by a light bulb swung by a psychic, so I guess that's cool. But yeah, it's really a little bittersweet knowing that NECA may not be able to do these anytime soon, finish out the line. I mean, it took so long to get this figure. I do wish I could compare it to the original. I just cannot find that thing for the life of me. But it drove me insane because people kept asking for Part 7 Jason, and on Twitter, it feels like Randy just kept going, well, we already made that one. Yeah, you made a figure that doesn't scale with anything else, that is full of inaccuracies, and obviously they figured that out because this thing looks very little like that last figure and it's phenomenal. So I don't know if they were able to make more figures, if they would be jumping in to do part 8 and Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X, but I mean, really, it's 4 figures left, and we have all of the real Jasons. You know, you could go and do comic book, you know, like Freddy versus Jason versus Ash Jason would be kind of cool, which basically the versus Jason anyway with a couple tweaks. But, you know, the main line is just 4 more figures, and it would just be so nice if we can get those last 4. But yeah, that'll do it for today. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.